Welcome to the Jameson Files. I'm your host, Carrie Weber. Thank you for being with us once again for another fantastic episode with an amazing guest. If you are watching us via live stream on the Jameson Facebook page, thank you for joining us during your very busy work week. We appreciate and value you as members of our Jameson Files community. If you're watching this on the Jameson YouTube channel, or if you're listening to us via wherever you listen to and subscribe to podcasts, thank you for joining us there. I invite you to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify. And please do help us spread the word to your dental friends and peers about the Jameson Files community. We want to continue to bring you great information, excellent guests, and resources and tools that help you grow and thrive in your ideal dental journey. So thanks for being with us. We appreciate you. I am so happy to have a phenomenal guest with us today that's going to talk about a very popular topic, medical billing. Laurie Owens is the Director of Medical Billing for Devdent and has been teaching, coaching, lecturing, training on medical billing for many years now, about 18 years, I believe, Laurie. Is that the case? And
yes,
so what we want to dive into right now in this episode is the question of, is your practice ready for medical billing? And Laurie, first of all, thank you so much for joining me today and being my guest on the podcast.
Oh, it is so my pleasure. I'm very excited about being with you.
Well, thank you. We are excited too. So, we have lots of conversations here at the Jameson team about medical billing, whether our clients are ready for it, how do they successfully integrate it into their practices, and make it a worthwhile effort for our practices that we work with across the country. So I'm excited to dive into your thoughts on how to determine if those practices that are listening to us today are indeed ready. But first, I would love to hear and have you share a little bit about your dental story. What's your story, Laurie? How did you end up where you are today as such a premier instructor in the dental field?
So I started out working for Dr. Michael Cohen. And as most people know, Dr. Cohen is the epitome of continuing education. And because of that, my first very introduction into dentistry, so to speak, 2 weeks in from being hired with no dental experience, was going to a CE course on bacteremia. And I sat next to our hygienist, Elizabeth, and I said, if we're making people sick, how can this be considered dental? And she said, that's a good question. I don't know. And that was my launch pad to say, why are we billing dental insurance when it really has to do with somebody's health? And it kind of launch boarded from there. So I asked the doctors, I said, I really think that this is something. I think this is something because of what we do. We were a perio office, and we were doing lots of oral surgeries. And I said, I think this is something. And I really want to figure out how this might apply to what we do. And so the doctors, of course, being such a busy office, they said, they weren't really for it, but they were for it. And they said, but we can't have you do it during work hours because we were extremely busy. Now, mind you, I did dental insurance, treatment plans, answering phones, meeting with I did the whole gambit. And so I totally understood. And so I took it on myself to learn at home. And I paid a guy $100 to look at my faxed claims. That's how old it is. Wow. I faxed in the claim, and he they were fictitious patients. I faxed in the claim, and he would fax back corrections. And so that's how I started. And I wanted to make sure I was doing things right. So I became a certified professional biller with the AAPC, which a lot of people think, oh, well, it's just oral cavity. It's not. It's whole body. It's your whole body. When you learn and you get credentialed, you have to learn whole body. Like I could do a retina detachment right now or spinal fusion, but it's not because you have to do that. It's because I wanted to make sure our offices were doing things right and legal. That was the whole reason behind any credentialing that I've obtained. I want to make sure that what I'm doing and teaching is proper. I also bill for 6 offices myself because I'm not going to teach something I won't do. That's not right. And so I do still bill for I have offices all over the United States. And so I don't just stick to Washington State, which is where I'm at, although I do have 2 offices here. The other 4
Wow.
are throughout the US. So it's just I started learning that there are things that happen, not every case. So please don't get me wrong. I don't want you to think that everybody who walks through your door is a medical billing case. But there are things that in dentistry, because we get so busy, we forget to be present and listen. And it could be something that you could help them, like a cancer patient. Cancer patients who might be in remission have an adverse effect to their anti-neoplastic or autoimmune medications. So you think about that. What are they going to do? They might lose all their teeth because it's just the way that medication runs its course. And so I just try to educate offices to find 3 things that would be predominant in their office. Again, each office is going to be different, so your 3 might not be somebody else's 3. And so, that was my springboard. I also have a bonus daughter because of dentistry. And so her dad would ride on our church bus, and he called me and said he had a toothache. And of course, this was when I was brand new to dentistry, counting my teeth with my tongue on the way home every night, literally doing that. And he said, I have a toothache. And I said, well, you need to go to the dentist. And he said, but I don't have dental insurance. And I said, but if it hurts, it's worse than you think. And so you need to go to the dentist. And he said, but if I pay a dentist, then I've taken my, food out of my daughter's mouth. And I'm like, but I don't know what else to tell you. Go to the dentist. So that Saturday came and went, and I didn't hear from him. Sunday morning, his daughter called me and she said, can you come to the emergency room? And my husband and I went. And when we got there, he was in the ICU at the emergency room, and by noon he was dead. He had an infection that went into his ear and went into his brain and turned septic and shut down his organs that quick. Now, not every case is going to be that quick, but when you have an infection, don't you think that could be an emergency? And so I kicked myself thinking, had I known then what I know now, I could have helped. And my husband walked her down the aisle, but that doesn't take the place of her dad, right? And then so it's a constant reminder of why I do what I do.
Wow,
so
Laurie.
I want nobody else to walk into somebody's office that doesn't have dental insurance that you say you can't help. Right?
Yes.
So that's my.
And your story truly is a testament to you choosing a very specific lane that you are passionate about, that you are genuinely interested and curious about, to be an ongoing and continuous student and learner in. And the dental community is better for it because you are such a great expert in this realm of when does it make sense? How does it work best? What are those common misconceptions or misappropriate use or attempts that causes it to fail? And how can we succeed? And when is it smart for a practice to explore this and incorporate this into their business model? So I appreciate you and your extraordinary story, and that through that story you are going to continue to bring such great resource and relevance to our community. So let's dive in and let's talk about those that are listening that may be curious about medical billing, or maybe they've tried before and it didn't work so well, or they're trying right now, or they're considering it. When do they know that they're ready? What are some tips?
As I was thinking about the title, I loved the title of the podcast. I love the title of what we're talking about because it's really relevant into, are you ready? My number one, and it's always been my number one, is, does your coach think you're ready? Because as a consulted office, we always had a consultant, no matter what. And it was depending upon where the doctors wanted to focus the practice. And so,
Right.
because of that, if the coaches, as an outside eyes, as they look in, they are going to be the number one guide on if you're ready. And if you don't have a coach, it's going to be really hard to figure that out because you don't have somebody looking at it with an objective perspective. And so,
Mm.
number one, if your coach feels you're ready, then you're ready. And if they don't, let's figure out what you need to work on outside of medical billing, because medical billing isn't like a funnel of just money coming in. That's not the purpose. If your main purpose is just to make millions of dollars, it's a great purpose, but that's not what medical billing is for. It's, are you
Right.
able to maximize benefits in order to get the patient healthier? And that, if you start
Right.
looking at it on that plane, the money comes. But it's not the other way around. If you're looking at the money, then your notes aren't going to be right. Your focus isn't going to be right. The medical necessity is not going to be right. And so that's why I say the outside eyes looking at your practice is the best way to find out if you're ready for medical billing. And so if you don't have a coach, call Jameson. Okay. So number
I love that one. Yeah.
number two.
But what I love
True.
about that, Laurie, is I love the statement of having an objective perspective. Having that outside set of eyes, because even personally as a business owner, if you're a quick draw and you get excited and you have a vision, you're a visionary in any way, shape, or form, you can sometimes put the cart before the horse and set yourself up for more of a failure than a success. And so even my own teammates sometimes have to say, hey, okay, slow down, cowgirl. You've got to slow it down a little bit, because there are steps that we need to take for this to be successful in the way that we want it to be. And to make sure that your vision is indeed clear, that the purpose for incorporating this is healthy and understood and makes sense. So I appreciate that, number one, on many levels. So
My
what
number
else?
two is going to be, you need to make sure you're fully staffed. Don't walk into medical billing saying, "Oh, I'm shorthanded," because what that's going to do is it's going to truly end up being a failure. Your staff is going to be frustrated because now they're not only doing multiple jobs, but you're incorporating new verbiage into their diction. And
Yes.
if you're not fully staffed, it's not a good time to attempt medical billing because you're only going to create frustration instead of education. And so a lot of doctors
Yes.
will come to a course and say, okay, team, start medical billing right now. And they haven't given their team anything to learn from. And the team goes, I have no more hats to wear.
Love that.
I'm wearing them all. And so you can't throw your team into that. As much as your heart might want to do medical billing, it's probably not the right time. Wait till you're fully staffed and you can help train your team. That is going to be the most important thing, that it's a team effort. This is not a solo endeavor. When we went into it as a practice, it was because the team did what I needed them to do,
Yes.
and that made the difference. The doctors knew what I needed to look for. It wasn't that every person was a medical bill. It's that it made sense. What we do in the oral cavity is going to help their health condition, or their health condition is being hindered by what's going on in the oral cavity. So it can go both ways, and that was important. That staff person, that everybody's on the same team. If you were to try to do it on a solo venture, you're going to be frustrated in it and you're going to stop.
Right.
It just is, right?
Are you seeing that? Are you seeing that even more right now, Laurie? The short-staffed predicament for practices that either started too soon without having that full, complete team, or perhaps they started and then they've lost team through the past year and a half, and they're finding that a challenge. Are you seeing that more, or is it pretty much the same as it's always been? Yeah.
So the other difficult thing is that you might have had a trained team member and or somebody that had full focus on medical billing, but now that team member's gone. And expecting the team to do the same things as if that other team member was there without any education or training. And that's
Right.
not fair. And so
Right.
what you're basically setting them up to fail.
Yes. Not
So
taking that
that
time or putting the effort, yeah, to get them
right,
trained.
that would be like taking somebody like when I started and saying, okay, here, answer the phones and schedule the appointments, and not telling me how to do that.
Right.
That is literally a recipe for disaster. So if you're not fully staffed, it's okay to not
Hmm.
move forward with medical billing, because again, you don't want to set it up for a failure. That is definitely not the idea. But my
Correct.
number three, and you're going to like this one, Carrie. Number three is you got to be prepared for growth. If you are
Yes.
not prepared for growth, now again, I do not believe you ought to hire unless the necessity is there, not the prospectus of its coming. But
Mm.
you have to plan for growth, because a lot of people have asked us over the years, how did you market this? How did you market medical billing for dentistry? We never did. And we
Yeah.
boomed. But
Yeah.
we planned for growth. We purchased the suite next to us. We purchased a whole new admin section so that we could
Mm.
be able to answer the phone calls that came in daily. I hear you bill medical insurance. So if you're not prepared for the growth, you need to be selective and careful, because if you
Mm.
have no space to grow, where are you going to put all these new patients that hear that you bill medical insurance?
Yes.
There's going to be
Yes.
nowhere for them to go. They're going to get frustrated. They're not going to leave you good reviews when you can't get them in for 2 months. It doesn't
Hmm.
work. So prepare for the growth, because with medical billing, I guarantee you will start getting more phone calls just because your patients are going to be talking about it.
Wow, I bet you see a lot of practices, Laurie, that because we talk to a lot of practices that are bursting at the seams already, but want more new patients. And they have more new patients coming in every month than you can really successfully care for in an ideal way, in my opinion. And so, do you see yourself having conversations with practices that say, like, we want to do this? And you say, where? How? How are you going to do this?
Exactly. So whenever I do an on-site with a team, I'm like, okay, so where would you put another admin member? Where
Mm,
would you put them? And if you don't have any idea, I'm going to say, then I don't want you to move forward full force.
mm-hmm,
Because what
mm-hmm.
happens when you are successful and other people start to, I'll give you, for instance, Gary, we had a patient take a, a stack of our cards and hand them out at work because we were able to get him $12,000 for his treatment.
Mm-hmm.
So what, we got
Mm-hmm.
12 patients from that one patient,
Wow.
12 from just one,
Wow.
and we did no advertising. So again, you have to be prepared to grow, find new operatories, find new team members, and
Mm,
don't let it get to the point that your other team members are pulling their hair out because they just don't have time. And when they don't have time to eat, there's problem, right?
mm-hmm.
Because you know,
Yes.
hangry dental assistants and hygienists are not very nice, and I don't blame them. So, I mean,
No.
at our I used to cook for them on when I knew we were having a super busy day. I would cook for them so that they could run in the lunchroom, grab something, eat it on the go, because we all know how hectic and chaotic it can
Mm,
get. And I didn't want food to be the obstacle. So I
mm,
cooked for him. I had a pot of stroganoff in the lunchroom, or I had uh, uh, tortilla soup or something. But
yeah.
again, if you're going to have it be so busy because now they're wearing so many different hats and you've got
Mm-hmm.
so many new patients coming in, be prepared for that growth, because
Yeah.
it
I,
could really be the downfall of your medical billing.
yes.
Because if you
Laurie, you're
don't
making
have
me
time,
hungry.
well, that's good. So my
Laurie,
number,
what I love about that before we move on to the next one is you're really piggybacking on all of your recommendations in such an ideal way because, again, that piece falls to we want you to be planning for growth, but doing an intentional, strategic planning in an educated and thoughtful way so that you can grow and that you will grow and you have the places and spaces and people at the right time for the growth. Instead of throwing hope against a wall and just praying that it sticks, we have intentionally planned for the future and for the vision of incorporating this into our practices. So if we're just doing a lot of gunshot approaches of, oh, let's do this, and then you become reactive because you've either hired too quickly or you started implementing medical billing too quickly and you don't have the capacity to even take it on successfully. You're setting, as you had said earlier, even not taking the time intentionally to train your team and get them on the same page and get them prepared for what, just like you're saying, we're going to have fast come and go eating because we're going to get busy before this balances out, for them to understand what they're on board for and with, also helps this be successful for the entire team. So I just wanted to support those thoughts because it's such a key factor in growing appropriately and healthily, so that implementation of anything is successful and sticks.
Absolutely. Everything, like you just said, is monumental. We all want to hire because we feel like we're busy, or we're really busy, but yet we don't figure out what that position would be, or we don't move the appropriate people into that position. Because I've had a team that didn't even realize they had one person that had the medical background because they didn't find out about their team. And yet she would have been the perfect person, and yet she got discouraged and quit.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, so that can be frustrating. You need to know your team. And I'm going to go back to, that's why a coach is important. They see qualities in your team members that you might not see. And you have, in that, again, outside eyes. It has to be outside eyes. From inside your practice just doesn't work. They see so much. I can't even accentuate that more. I literally had the best coaches in our practice. And so I just want to emphasize that having a coach doesn't mean you're a weak practice owner. It actually means you are a very strong practice owner because you want the best for your team. So
Yes.
that's the best way to say it. My number 4, take a course. Take a course.
Take a course.
Oh, my soul. I mean, the 2-day courses that I do, number one, I'm funny. Okay. I'm funny. I make this silly, basic, boring subject as fun as I possibly can because I know it can be dry and boring, but without the education, and again, it goes back to my if you were to ask me what my ideal scenario would be, is that the office had a coach, that they took a course, that they brought me on site to train the team, and then from there I could coach them. Again, I'm not a coach for dental billing, dental insurance billing. I'm none of that. I told a team this last week, I said, we used to have these little napkins taped up in our lab and in our lunchroom, and you want to know what it said? Put your big girl panties on and deal with it. Because that's what I would do. That I'm terrible. I just build a bridge, get over it, and let's move forward. But that's because I'm mean like that. I can be mean in a funny way. But I don't want to coach that. I want to help. That comes that help. There's Carrie, I had people find me on YouTube lately. It's weird. I've never, I got a call. I'm like, I watched your YouTube video. I'm like, really? You did? And that's what it's exciting about it, because people are learning, and these are not doctors, they're customers. They're your patients that are seeing this out there in the medical realm. And so where else better can I guide them to than an office that's been trained? Because do you think I'm going to send them to an office that says, I want to do that someday? Yes. That's not going to help either of you. Right. So take a course, get the education. When you take a course of mine, you get an email of every resource you could possibly think of that you can change. You can edit
Yes.
it to your practice, but if you don't take a course, it's very difficult to help you. I have you bring your own cases, bring your scenarios, bring your chart, your treatment notes. I don't need to know your patient's name. I don't want you to bring your patient's names, but I want you to bring what you deal with on a daily basis, because then I can guide you to how could we code this. One of the things I
Mm.
find that frustrate dentists the most and what they say to me the most is I tried it before. I tried one case before.
Yeah.
Oh, really? What codes did you use? Well, I don't know. Well,
Yeah.
I can guarantee you that's probably why it didn't work, is
Right.
because everything is paid based on diagnosis code. So if you have
Mm-hmm.
the wrong code first, they're not going to pay you. If it's a code that you cannot use as a primary diagnosis, it's going to get denied.
Mm-hmm.
So why would they pay you when it's not a billable primary diagnosis?
Yes.
And so that's
Yes.
what we try to train you to do, to look at the story. So think of it this way, Carrie. Your patient calls you in pain. The doctor finds an infection, and now you're going to lose that too, right? Now flip it.
Mm.
We code it the other way. We have a partial loss of teeth due to infection and pain. So we
Mm.
have to think about our stories backwards. What are
Mm.
you treating, and why is it necessary to treat it? And that's
Mm.
where a lot of doctors get lost in that shuffle. So taking a course helps guide you to that primary diagnosis code for that service so that you know you'll be paid. Even in trauma, if you code a trauma case with how it happened before what happened, they're going to deny your case, in which everybody
Mm.
knows trauma is trauma, right? So if you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
tell them that it's fractured or if it's avulsed, telling them how it happened is not going to make a difference. They have to have what happened before they have why it happened.
Oh
So I
yeah.
hope that makes.
Oh, that's it's just what a perfect way to explain that and to pivot the mindset that helps people be more successful, even just to start considering what does this look like and how is it different. And I feel like Laurie, when you were saying that you talked to doctors that have said, I tried this once and it didn't work, and I feel like you could insert 70 other things about their practice or implementing something new or different into that statement, because that's the story of getting outside your comfort zone and change, isn't it? So it could be patient financing, it could be incorporating some new type of technology, a new software. When it stretches that rubber band of comfort, the comfort zone out, when you have that first one that doesn't work, or we didn't do it right, we snap right back to what we're most comfortable with, instead of exploring how can I do this better. And like you said, like we've been talking about, that intentional planning. What do I need to do? What do I want? I want to incorporate successfully medical billing into my practice. What do I need to do first? Well, I might need to take a course to know exactly what this is, how it works, and how we can be successful at it. So, I
Which is
love
going to
the
be
way that you
everything
analyze that.
too, right? If you have,
Right.
if you look at it, and say, we'll bill medical, they'll cover it all. What? No, you will never hear me say that in a course. You
Right.
have financial agreements based on what you know, which is what their dental insurance covers. So if you have
Yes.
a conversation with your patient, and as a courtesy, we'll bill your medical insurance to maximize any benefit we're able to obtain. Did I
Mm-hmm.
promise you $1, Carrie? Did I
No.
promise you a 50 cents?
No.
But I told you we would do our best to maximize a benefit. It has nothing, you cannot promise something you don't know. So I always say under promise, over deliver. I would rather you tell
Mm-hmm.
them nothing than to be grasping at straws that you don't know. So
Mm-hmm.
make your financial agreement based on what you do know, which is what the dental would cover. And if
Right.
the goal is, I tell all my students, your goal is not to get them a zero copay or a zero
Mm-hmm.
payment. That is not the goal. The goal is to get them reduce their out of pocket cost if you were billing dental only, and to have the practice write off less. Would you agree, Carrie, that that would be a
Mm-hmm.
benefit all the way around?
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
that's why
And
I say it should never make a difference in your AR. It should always make a difference in what you're doing to provide a service for your patients. And I
mhm.
think that you could, I have to even tell you that verbiage that I just talked about was my team. I didn't even come
Mm,
up with that. Our team
mhm.
came up with that. And everybody said the same thing as a courtesy, or when they collect their card.
Yes.
If there's a procedure our doctor does that we can maximize through your medical insurance, we want to make sure to have the information on hand. Was our team. I didn't
Yeah.
even think of it, but I use
Yeah.
it, and I use it a lot, but I always give credit where credit is due. It was my
Right.
team. So that's the whole part, taking a course, getting the team on board. I'll give you a, for instance, this was an amazing thing, Carrie. I was just at an office in Minneapolis. This team, the first day I met with the team and we reviewed a whole bunch of stuff. And the next day I stay and I listen to their new patient consults, but their notes were, oh my goodness, their hygiene notes from 3 months ago to now. I was blown away, because once the team knows what are we looking for, what verbiage could we use,
Yes.
that makes all the difference in the world. We didn't say, oh, this is a dental case or this is a medical case. All of our notes were written as if it could be a medical case, because get this,
Yes.
industry understands those notes. We don't have to
Mm,
make different notes for medical and dental. You can make them all
yes.
the same. If you need to use them for medical, you've already got medically necessary notes. So I'm just saying,
Yes.
it can make the difference taking a course and getting the education to the point that you don't even realize how bad they were before until they can
Yes.
make such dramatic improvements. So I always
Yes.
tell teams, a month after I'm there, I want y'all to read each other's notes, not to yell at each other or to criticize, but to say, what could we do, or how could we say something to make this sound medically necessary because it's a medical case. And that's
Right.
always working on improvement. We had every 3 months we would meet as a team and review our notes, because we all end up into our bad habits again,
Mhm.
going back to the way we kind of like to do things. And if we can make sure that it's in the forefront of our minds that what
Yes.
we're doing is helping these patients. Carrie, in the last 5 years, before the doctors went and retired on me, I did not write a letter of medical necessity at all, because
Wow.
the notes said everything.
The
It was
notes said it
amazing.
all.
Yes, and I
That's
did it. I
amazing.
sent the notes off to medical, and they approved it based on the team's notes, not Lori's notes. So
Right.
I loved that. I always made sure to share with the team what they were able to do, because it's
Yes.
their success, not just mine. So my
Yes.
last one, you got
Okay.
to decide how you're going to do this. There are ways outside of only your office. So, Carrie, I'll tell you, the hardest part for me was not filing a claim. I could file a claim probably in my sleep. It's the
Mhm.
follow up, because following up those claims, patient walks in and says, Carrie, what's going on with my medical claim? And Carrie goes,
Right.
if I have free time in a couple weeks, as long as I don't have double doctors, I'll call. That was the worst thing for me as a medical
Yes.
biller. I felt horrible because, remember, I was doing dental insurance, medical insurance, treatment plan, conferences, and everything under the sun. And I didn't
Yes.
have time, and I felt horrible. So you need to, if you're going to look at a third party, number one, we wrote a software for dentistry. So you can put your dental code in and it tells you how it crosses into medical. We also guide you
Fantastic.
to the primary diagnosis code. But get it's even, I mean, I think that's really cool, but
Yes.
we do all the follow up for you. So if your
Oh yeah.
patient walks in and says, Lori, what's going on with that medical claim? I can log in and say, the biller's called on this date. This is what happened. And they're scheduled to call again on this date. That, to
Mm.
me, I wanted offices to look smart. I wanted them to say,
Mhm.
I know what's going on and
Mhm.
everything is due dated. So again, that to me was important. So whoever you choose as a third party vendor, like I said, I wish I was more of a salesperson. I'm not. I want you to find what's best for for your office. It's
Yes.
to us at Devdent, it's not a matter of that we are the best. It's a matter of you have to find what's best for your office. But make sure that
Yes.
they're doing a follow up and giving you some due dates, because patients want to know that you're on top of it. And if you have to respond like I had to respond, I hated it. I hated saying, I don't
Yeah.
know. Let me find a day in a couple weeks. Just make sure you have the time. Do you have a dedicated person that can handle this for you? If you do,
Mm-hmm.
by all means, do it yourself. But remember, you got to be able to track it. They have to be good at organization. They need to be able to tell the doctors what's going on with these claims and where's what's outstanding, what's been paid, things like that. We actually
Right.
have a filter on our software that, Carrie, if your doctor said, hey, what claims have we gotten paid for medical, you could filter out only the paid claims and print that out for the doctor so that
Yeah.
he can see all the claims that you submitted, all that have been paid or pending or denied.
Mm-hmm.
So you can
Mm-hmm.
actually see everything. And to me and to all of our team members, that is the important thing, that it has to work for you. So
Mm-hmm.
whatever when you start looking for a third party vendor, make sure they, create what does your ideal look like? Do you
Yes.
want somebody to do your follow up for you? Do you want somebody to help you with those pre authorizations? Do you
Mm-hmm.
want coaching? So make
Yes.
sure they're going to check off all your boxes, because I really think that's important. I'm crazy enough that I give people my cell phone number. Uh, and I
Yeah.
do, it's intentional though. I know people say,
Yes.
well, that's dumb, but it's intentional because I've been in your shoes. I know that if you have a question, I tell you to text me because I can even answer a text on a plane. And if you have
Mm-hmm.
a question, it's important enough that I'm going to answer it, because you wouldn't have texted me had you not thought it was important, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
also have another thing. I answer every email before I go to sleep. Why? Because if it was me, I'd want an answer as soon as possible. And I tell people, if I'm
Yes.
teaching all day, just know I will answer you by the nighttime, because
Yeah.
I've been there, and I want you to know this is important all the way around. Whether you're
Yes.
using us or not, if you took a course with me, I'll be there to support you in however you want to do it. So in my
Yes.
courses, Carrie, I don't just talk about our software. I talk about how to fill out a form. I talk about the web portals that you could use to file the claim, because you have to find out what's good for your practice, not what's good for Lori. So you
Mm-hmm.
figure out, can you have a dedicated staff person to do this? Can Does a third party vendor make better sense to you? Because again, we're not going to be getting into your software. There's a big difference between us and some other softwares, medical
Mm-hmm.
billing softwares. We don't get into your softwares. We don't take your checks for you. We don't even correspond. All the correspondence is going to come to your office. But Carrie, if you got a letter saying we want more information, all you do is scan it and upload it to that patient's claim, and we take it from there. So again,
Okay.
we cannot take your place. We don't want to take your place. Everything, we should just be your billing company. We should be
Yes.
the ones that provide the information, but you are the point of contact. I hope that makes sense. We're not going
Absolutely.
to hop into your software. We're not going to post things. We're not going to get checks on your behalf. That's not what we do. We are your
Mm-hmm.
support, and that's what we want to be. So those are
Absolutely.
my 5 things that I think
I
are
love
important
him.
looking at medical billing for dentistry. And if the people want to watch, there are on-demand webinars on our website. They're free. You can
Yes.
see if it's right for you. There's also a demo of the software that you can play just on demand. You don't have to contact anybody, or nobody's going to hound you to be a
Right.
customer, because again, it has to be what's right for your practice, not what's right for us.
Right.
So that's a little bit
So
about
Lori,
us.
how do they find you? How do they find more information about you
You
or
can email
Devdent?
me, Lori at devdent.com. So Laurie at devdent.com. I'm not going to give my cell phone number out here,
That's
but
probably a good idea.
but if you email me and you need to contact me, I want to make sure that you have access. One of the big things, Carrie, that's coming up is that people are having to file their third extractions to medical
Mm,
before they can do dental. So if that being the case, I'm going to email Jameson a sample of a third extraction claim form so that if Jameson can handle it, you can email Carrie and get it from her. And that way you'll have a sample of what extractions of thirds look like. It's not hard. There's only one of two codes. If they're completely in the bone, they're embedded. If they're partial bony or surgical extraction, they're impacted. It's real. So diagnosis wise, it doesn't vary from that. So I'll send that to Carrie and you can get to Jameson Management and they can email that to you and you can make contact that way.
That's great. Thank you so much, Laurie. So for all of us that have been listening and learning from Laurie today, remember, working with your coach to determine the right time. Timing can be everything for successful implementation of medical billing. Making sure you have the right team members in place, that you're preparing for the growth in an intentional way, strategically planning for it to all be successful as you grow through this added service and courtesy you're providing your patients and their ongoing health and care. That you're also giving your team the opportunity to be trained, that you yourself are taking a course, and that you're doing this from an educated standpoint of what your true needs are and what you need to take care of first. And those courses, like Laurie provides, are the most important first step in getting prepared for incorporating medical billing into your practice. And then making sure that you are following up and following through and that you have a plan for successful implementation and follow-up, whether that's through processes in your own practice or through partnering with the resources such as Laurie has shared to help you be successful in the continuation of this service in your practice. These make a difference in your practice's success in medical billing and making that a part of your day-to-day dental lives. So Laurie, thank you so much for being with us. Such great information, so much that you're bringing to the table. I do encourage our community to visit devdent.com, learn more about Laurie, learn more about those courses, and take those first steps into successfully implementing medical billing into your practice. Laurie, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks to all of you for being with us. Once again, it's a pleasure that you give us the value of your time. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Jameson Files. Visit us online at jmsn.com. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play Music, or Spotify. Do you have questions or topics you'd like for us to answer or cover on the next podcast? Email us at podcast@jmsn.com.